and a happy new year. Hopefully it's a good year for everybody. So we just have two applicants tonight. The first one being DRB 2021-41, the application of Rockwell Custom at 201 North Aberdeen Avenue in Wayne for a facade renovation. So welcome, Luke, and welcome, Jim. And
Thanks.
Why don't you walk us through and let us know what you have in mind for that building?
Okay, great. So I'm going to share the screen. This should be the same packet that was sent over to you guys. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
And you can hear me okay too?
Yeah, hear you fine, Jim. Thanks.
Okay. All right, great. Okay. So I think most of you probably know the building. This is the last page of the packet, but I just want to put up the existing photographs on the left-hand side. It is, what a lot of people in the township know is the American Pool Company building. It also had the hockey store in there where my kids all bought gear and whatnot. And Luke and Todd is here from Rockwell. Rockwell is going to renovate the facade of the building. There is currently a tenant in the front of the building. Luke, I forget their names. It's RC. It's a custom upholsterer.
Yeah, it's an upholstery company.
Yeah, and they do really terrific work. I've seen their stuff. I remember looking at their website. So anyways, but the left-hand side, the building's probably built, I'm guessing, early 60s, late 50s. It's kind of a glazed brick. It has this, can you see my cursor too?
Yes.
Okay. So it has this kind of overhang here, this slightly pitched roof, flagpole on the right. It has this front concrete apron porch, whatever you want to call it, which has glazed tiles across the top, a la, the pool company. That's in pretty bad shape. So we're proposing to knock all that out and also make the building accessible, handicap accessible. And then we're also removing all of the existing aluminum window wall here and putting in a new storefront design. Not really changing the parking per se. We'll provide a handicap spot there. Keep the flagpole, and then we're putting some new wood on the front. I'll get back into this in just a second. And doing some decorative treatments to the side of the building as well. So let me just zoom in here on the plan. Oops, I got too far out. Okay, so here's the plan, and it really doesn't have anything on the interior of the building, but you can see the new work there. So the parking essentially, as I said, remains the same. I think our new porch comes out maybe a foot or two beyond where the existing porch is, but we'll no longer have those center stairs. We'll move the stairs to the Lancaster Avenue side, the south side, so we can get a switchback handicap ramp in here. And the handicap ramp will, be going up at a 1 in 12. All of the paving on the front porch will be like a flame finished bluestone. The railings on the handicap porch will be a stainless steel cable rail system. You're probably familiar with this, but I have a picture of it in the packet as well. We'll get back to that. We're also proposing to put a planter in the front along the new window wall there. I think the planter's only maybe 18 inches, 20 inches deep. The idea is it would just be fairly low maintenance mix of plant materials, mostly evergreen, but I think with some deciduous and probably some seasonal plantings in it as well. And then you come up the stairs here, and the new entrance is on the south side with this little inset single entrance door and kind of this bay here. The projection that you saw in that first photo still hangs over. I think it's 4 feet 6 inches that it projects out. So it doesn't project over the entire walkway. It really projects to about the midway point of the two ramps. And the only lighting we're proposing on the front facade are LED water resistant downlights in the soffit of that. So there's no decorative light fixtures. And in fact, if you look at the window wall, I mean, there's so much glass there. Frankly, there's not really much room for any decorative lighting anyways. We'd like to keep the flagpole and kind of spruce it up a little bit. It's kind of a nice feature of the building. And then, as I said, we're also doing some stuff on the south facade there, and this is the south elevation. So here on the right, as you can see, is the, excuse me, this is the south elevation that'd be facing Lancaster Avenue. Right now, there's a house to the south of this, which is, kind of a Victorian house. I'm guessing literally only maybe 10 feet off the property line. It's a pretty rundown house currently, but eventually, it may go. And the idea is that on the south facade, the base of our handicap ramp and the base of our stairs is all a kind of a veneer stone and a kind of a grayish gold, kind of a patina. Here's the cable rail system for the stairs going up to the porch. This is all natural wood. It's kind of a, excuse me, kind of a random pattern of a board and batten done horizontally. I mean, most times board and batten is done in a vertical situation, but the idea there is this is a natural cedar. I'll show you some in the rendering that in just a second. And then we're also proposing, this is again, kind of a built up roof, but it does have a slight pitch to both the south and the north facades. So we will put new gutters and new downspouts on the south side as well. You can probably see those in the existing photos. And they are meant to be a pre-finished powder coated aluminum in a bronze kind of a color, so dark. And then the south wall itself has no windows. It's just a stucco facade. It would just be fixed up and painted. But we're also proposing to put some stainless steel cable trellises along that south facade as well, and then plant some, either seasonal deciduous vines like a trumpet vine or something like that, wisteria or whatever it might be, or you could even plant some things like, English ivy or something to grow up on those. And I'll show you, excuse me, some images of that as well. And then the uncolored, excuse me, front elevation shows the ramp going up, the landing at the midway point, going on up to the entry porch. Here's the stairs going up to the entry porch. A very tall door, 9'6" high door. All of this is fixed window wall with some divided muntins and a black anodized aluminum. The door might have, a tenant signage on it. These windows could possibly have tenant signage on it, but we're not asking for approval on that tonight. If they want to put signage there, they would come back to you guys for their actual, the tenant signage. The only signage we have on the building is the address numerals, which are above the door. So that piece on the top there is now thicker, and it projects the same 4'6" that existing overhang does. And the soffit with those recessed downlights is down here. But then over the doorway, we also have a further projecting, I'll call it a little overhang that projects another 2 feet as cantilevered overhang that is metal. And it has on top of it these freestanding letters that have the address of the property in kind of they're not pin mounted, they're standing up, freestanding aluminum. They're 10 inches high. I think the square footage is on somewhere on the material we gave you. Again, this is all the natural cedar wood wrapping the top, the stone veneer on the side. This is just meant to show on the left-hand side here, this kind of stainless steel cable rail system that we're proposing for these trellises on the south elevation. So basically that's what you're seeing in the two elevations. And then if I go to a view of the rendering, this kind of pulls all, oops, I'm sorry. Well, now I can't get rid of it. Let me go back for just a second. Okay. I don't know how to unpick this. Hang on one second. I want to get rid of the blue. Okay. So in the rendering, now you're seeing both sides of the building. So here's the new handicap ramp, the steps, et cetera, the window wall, the new cedar, the projecting cantilever, the flagpole, and then now I'm seeing those trellises that run along the side of the building, the new gutters and downspouts. Our material board, you don't have physical materials because we're obviously doing this in the age of COVID, but this is meant to be the proposed materials for the building. So the stone down at the bottom would be what's equal to what's called a colonial tan ledge stone by Stonewood Products. It's a company up in Massachusetts that we've used quite a bit. The color of the stone is kind of a blend between a cool gray and a kind of a rusty, warmer gray. It has coloring not unlike a natural schist you would see in the Delaware Valley, although it's more of a kind of a granite stone as opposed to a schist, which I think a lot of you are familiar with probably. You know, it's the stuff that's on tons of colonial houses around the main line, a lot of the houses, say in St. David's, for example. The gutters on the downspouts on the south elevation, we're proposing to be true half round gutters instead of K gutters, 4-inch true round downspouts. That cedar siding with the battens that I was mentioning before, this is meant to be some approximation of that. This is another project of ours, kind of a beach house where we've done this before. So it has the projection battens that are 1.5 inches wide, and then a random pattern of horizontal boards that might vary anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5 to 6 inches, etc. So that's kind of what you're seeing there. And then, hang on just a second. The window wall system is not unlike a Conair or Criddle thermally broken powder coated aluminum window wall system. Again, in a black we're proposing to do. So the overall effect would be this building here on the right, although we wouldn't be surrounded by black tile. In our case, all of our stuff would be surrounded by the wood. This is a little blow up of the lettering. The typeface is, I think, Chivo, which is kind of a modern, a bit of a retro modern, 1950s, 60-ish pin mounted letters. And we're proposing those to be in a color that would match Benjamin Moore's acanthus green, which is not literally, but not too dissimilar to weathered copper, even though this will be, again, powder coated, sort of a grayish green. The cable rail system, again, you're probably familiar with this. You do see it around a lot nowadays. So it's 1/4 inch braided aircraft cable is the horizontals, and then the stanchions would be a powder coated, in this case, black steel. The paving, as I mentioned, would be thermal finished bluestone. And then some of the plantings in that front bed, we do want some interest, and we'd like some interest in summer and winter. Pierce japonica is an evergreen, but more of a, not evergreen in the sense of a, kind of a juniper or cedar, but it has interest with these kind of the flowering in spring. These things will turn to berries later on, and it has kind of a deep grayish green color. So that's what you're seeing there. And then these are just meant to be photographs of before and after from the same, more or less the same vantage point. So the existing building, kind of a little bit from, if you were coming down Aberdeen Terrace, from the northwest, I guess, and the proposed. And then if you're coming up Aberdeen from Lancaster Avenue from the south, this is kind of what you're seeing currently with the existing porch, and this is what you'd be seeing in the proposed. So anyway, I think that about covers it. I'm certainly willing to answer any questions or go back to any slides that you guys want me to kind of hone in on.
Tim or Colin, comments?
Being a resident of this neighborhood, anything to improve this building, I will gladly approve.
Well, it's a beautiful plan there. Really, really looks nice.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I have
Thank you.
nothing.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, I have no comment. I think it looks great.
I guess the one just question, this RC is going to be the occupant of the building?
Yeah, and I think it's called Rhodes Crossing. I just had a brain freeze and remembered it.
Okay.
RHOAD, yes, Rhodes Crossing, and they do They do furniture and custom upholstery, pillows, draperies, things like that.
Mhm.
But as I said, Bob, they would come back for any approval on their signage.
Exactly. Okay, great, great. That looks terrific. I guess just one comment, the north wall, I guess that'll stay the way it is. Is it bricked all the way back?
No, see the brick, see how the brick's here on the right-hand side, Bob?
Mhm.
So we're covering up the brick on the left-hand side.
Yes.
But both the existing building, I think you can see in that old photo, that brick only turns maybe 30 inches,
Gotcha.
and then it's stucco. So if you look at the existing, you're asking about the north facade,
Mhm.
but if I just zoom in on the south, it's kind of a mirror image.
Okay.
It turns to stucco pretty soon,
Mhm.
and it's fairly close to that house. And there's a privet hedge. You can see where my cursor is that runs
Yes.
across the whole side there. So that would just be, again, fixing up the stucco and painting it.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
it's really terrific plan. And
I do have one question. Is the porch depth increasing or is the porch depth remaining the same? And if it's increasing, do the parking stalls then shrink? And then does that have any effect on the sidewalk?
The answer to your last question is no. It definitely has no effect on the sidewalk. And I'm trying to remember, as I said earlier, I think we're going out a little bit further. But if it is, it's pretty minimal. And the dimension, hang on just a second here. Let me see if I can get it. So this is the edge of, see my cursor there? That's the edge of the asphalt, and the sidewalk is to the right of that. Here's the curb, okay? So here's the sidewalk, there's the curb. That is a full size, probably a 16-foot SUV. So it's, that area there, even if we were coming out, even greater distance, that distance is probably 21 feet or 24 feet across there. So it should have no effect whatsoever.
great.
Mr. Chairman, it's Kevin. I have a question or clarification I would like to ask.
Sure.
So, Jim, going back to, I guess, the view of the rendering, the perspective, yeah, that one there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the projection that the address letters are on, that looks like it's projecting beyond what is currently there.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
How are we with setbacks and whatnot, the front yard setback off of Aberdeen?
We should be good. I haven't looked at it in a while. We did these drawings a while ago, but it's once you get once you guys finish, it'll obviously be going in for building review. I don't think there's any zoning issues, but
that is my concern. That
I understand.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, I would just respectfully request if there's any approvals that would be conditioned upon compliance with any underlying zoning issues.
Okay. All right, Kevin.
Okay.
Good.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right.
Does that additional canopy, does that cover the full extent of the staircase there or not?
No, it doesn't. So, and back to your point, Kevin. So the overall ramp and everything, I should know this, but let me see if I can see it on the plan, is projecting 7 feet. And that, I'm sorry, 7 plus the planters too. And that's just a hair beyond, what was existing already. The cantilever for the canopy, hang on one second. I think that you can see it, it's dotted here on the plan. Let me zoom in. So see it here, that's the canopy right there. So it projects, it doesn't project over the entire stairs. It's, if the planter's 2 feet, the old projection where that dotted line is probably 4 feet from the facade. The canopy is probably another 2 feet. I'm guessing that whole piece there is probably 6, and the overall handicap ramp is probably 9.
Yeah, Jim, from a zoning standpoint, we wouldn't consider the steps or the ramp part of the building setback, but the canopy for the roof as it's attached to the building would be. So,
Oh,
the
okay.
steps,
All right. I
yeah,
understand.
there's no
Okay,
issues
okay.
with the ramp and the steps. It's just the roof on the building.
I got you. And I can't speak. I don't, Luke, if you want to say anything here. I like the canopy, and I think it offers a little bit of a prominence to say this is the entrance, and the address there I think is important. But I don't think it would be the end of the world if the canopy, pushed back if we had an issue with the zoning. And if the overall overhang is an issue, the 4 feet currently, I think we would argue that we're just covering up something that's already there. And
Yeah, you
providing.
are definitely entitled to a nonconformity.
Okay,
This would
I
be
got you.
reviewed at the grading permit stage, so I would be doing a zoning review there. I just don't want to overlook something that is, it kind of just jumped down at me because it's,
I
you've
understand.
done such a great job with the aesthetics of this building compared to what's there. Even if it was new construction, I want to be, everybody aware that that's a potential issue that we need a little bit more
Got it.
information on.
Understand.
Great. Kevin, any more comments, questions from?
No, Mr. Chairman, that was the only thing that I saw. I think they've done a really nice job with this project.
Great. Colin or Tim, comments, final comments?
No additional comments.
Okay.
Nothing.
Kevin, real quick, would the next step from here would be grading, or the building permit has been filed?
It should be grading if you've,
Okay.
are you indicating that you've done a building permit prior to?
Yeah, well, the building permit's already been submitted, so that's the only reason I'm asking.
Okay.
I will have to look into the site plan and see if we can get this put on a plot plan.
Yeah, the ramp and the whatever you're doing in the front there definitely requires a grading permit.
Okay.
We're going to need to review that for accessibility. So, yeah, there's Luke, do you know when that was done?
Well, I'm sorry.
Do you know when that was submitted?
The building permit was submitted in just maybe the second week of December, but
Okay.
so I will have to get a grading permit in. I just it wasn't on my radar, but I guess probably because a lot of the bed is already there. It's just renovating what impervious was there, but I understand you have to check setbacks and everything else. So
anytime you put a shovel in the ground, it's a grading permit.
Yep.
In Radnor. So, we'll get through that process. Maybe it wasn't clear on submission that this exterior work was being done.
Okay.
Otherwise, if it was, we would have probably kicked it back, but
Yeah,
no
sure,
worries.
sure.
We'll continue to process what we need to on the building side. We just won't issue permits until the grading stuff is wrapped up.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Further questions from Luke or Jim? You guys
No.
are good with everything? Okay. Can I ask Tim to make a motion for acceptance?
Absolutely. In the matter of DRB 2021-41, the application of Rockwell Customs for the renovated front facade of existing building at 210 North Aberdeen in Wayne, Pennsylvania, I move for approval of the application contingent on zoning approval, specifically regarding the setback and the cantilever overhang.
Great. Here a second? Colin? Do we hear a second?
Second,
Thank you,
technical
Colin.
issue, sorry.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Great. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jim. Good to see you, buddy.
All right. Good to see you, Bob. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Luke.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Okay.
See y'all.
All right. Next on the agenda tonight is DRB 2021-42, the application of JTA Associates, Jeffrey Martin at 427 East Lancaster Avenue in Wayne for a roof deck. Hello, Jeff.
Good evening. How are you guys?
Great, Jeff.
I'll mention again, Kevin was kind enough to let us come to the DRB before the zoning hearing board. So this again, just like the previous, would be a conditional upon getting the variance granted that we would need. So I thank Kevin for letting us do it this way. I have
No
some
problem, Jeff.
documents.
It just, again, it would be up to the board if they want to grant that conditional or continue the matter if they want to wait to see what zoning has to say on this.
Gotcha. I understand what you're saying, Kevin. Thank you.
All right, Jeff, why don't you walk us through your plan here?
All right, let me see if I can. The buildings on Lancaster Avenue that Mark Janicek is building at 427 came before you 2 or 3 years ago for the design review board. What we're looking at is up on the roof, this area right here. He has a buyer for the large third floor unit, and the buyer wants to do a roof deck. So this portion right here is the pilot house for the stair tower, which is not counted in the building height. But this fence that they want to put around the roof deck is counted in the building height. So why we need the variance is that fence exceeds the building height by 7 feet 6 inches. So that's why we need the variance. Let me see if I can find. Okay, here we have the site plan. Along the bottom is Lancaster Avenue. Railroad tracks are up along the top. The area that we're talking about is right here. And that is, let's see, that is 88 feet back from the front of the building. So that really will not be visible from Lancaster Avenue. And we are now on the Lancaster Avenue elevation. This side is the entrance driveway side. This side, actually both sides of the building are the Levine apartments. This is the west side of the building, and this sits closer to the west side. So when you look at the, something across the top of my screen, there we go. When you look at the west side of the building, you can see Lancaster Avenue is way over here. We're way back here, and then this is the courtyard between the two buildings. So again, it's very far back. The height, when you're down on the ground looking up, it's going to be hardly visible. The materials for the pilot house that encloses the stair from the condominium, it's a private roof deck, by the way. It's only for the residents of the third floor unit, the 1 third floor unit. This is going to be stucco that will match stucco on the building. And this shadow box fence will be a composition board shadow box fence painted to match the stucco.
Jeff, the so-called stair tower, is that in place now? Or that would be?
No, that has not been built yet.
Okay. All right.
We
I don't know
have-
whether it was, you know,
And what I want to make clear, when you look at the front of the building, this is the stair tower for the entire building. It goes from the basement to the roof. This stair tower is only from the one condominium to the roof deck. So it's a private stair tower.
so the stair tower is 7 feet 6 inches over
No, the fence.
the fences. How
The
tall?
fence will be, the top of the fence will be 7 feet 6 inches above the roof. And the roof is basically the building height. And I say basically because the roof slopes. So at one point, the roof is 5 inches below the maximum building height. At one point, it matches the maximum building height. The stair tower is exempt from the building height.
Why is that?
In the code talks about the building height excluding elevator shafts, stair towers,
Okay.
things like that. It
Gotcha.
does not
What is the
exclude-
purpose of the fence that is not conforming?
It's so that when they're up there on the roof deck, they're not looking at all the mechanical equipment up there and all the roof drains and roof vents.
Got it.
So it's just going to be a boxed in portion.
Exactly. Their view is going to be the sky, but when you're up there on the roof, it's really not that attractive with all the equipment that's up there and the plumbing vents and vents from range hoods and bathrooms. And, you know, there's a generator up there. There's a lot to see.
And it's going to continue to be just the roof, because I know there's a portion of this building that's going to have essentially a green roof over one part of it, right?
That's the portion between the two buildings. And that's down just at the first floor level, covering just the parking garage.
So essentially you're saying that the unit that resides directly below this
Exactly.
pop up a staircase and have a roof deck.
Exactly right.
So would it be your opinion that this roof deck is merely for outdoor space and stargazing?
Yes. Yeah, go up, fresh air, sunlight, stargazing.
I could see the value of having it for entertainment purposes.
Yeah. I apologize. The dog always knows when I'm on a Zoom call and demands attention, so I apologize.
Well, it's an interesting application. I have to say it's the first one. I think we've
Yeah.
crossed. What do you guys feel, Colin and Tim? What's
I
your-
guess I don't know what are we approving?
What we're approving is the Stair Tower penthouse. And I think tentative approval or conditional approval would be the fence.
So quick question here. This is on, if you're on Lancaster Ave, this is on the back side of the building, right?
Correct.
Then this unit, the 303 unit, is that the entire third floor of that back half?
No. If you look at this elevation that we have on the screen now, the left side of that is units 301 and 302. The 303 takes up the right half of the building.
So what's to keep the other units from wanting to pop up their own and have their own roof decks later?
They're already sold, for one thing, and the agreement of sale on unit 303 has this as part of the agreement of sale. 301 and 302 are sold without that issue.
And then what
And that's a
about,
good question, Colin. Could they come back? I think the answer for that would be for 301 and 302, it structurally can't happen because all of the roof over 301 and 302 is where we have all the mechanical units. So we couldn't do it for them if they wanted.
and you said 301 and 302 are essentially the Lancaster Ave side of the,
Correct. They're on the Lancaster Ave side.
and then you have this, the original staircase for the building is kind of the midpoint.
That's
then you-
right.
303 is the back half, the bigger penthouse.
Yes.
All done.
Tim, I think it's the back half of the front building. So it is possible, depending on the angle coming up or down Lancaster, that you
Right.
could see this because it's not the back half of the back building. It's the building closest to Lancaster Avenue. And to answer your question about what's stopping somebody else from doing this, nothing other than getting creative with the mechanicals up there, submitting design plans, coming in front of this board and going in front of the zoning hearing board. There's nothing that precludes somebody from trying to do it. I'm not saying that this sets a precedence.
And you're right, Kevin. If somebody wanted to absorb the cost of moving those units and make that part of the cost of the project, yeah, I suppose that could happen.
So then,
Alan, to answer your question, what you're approving is this is a facade change. And you'll be looking at basically the materials of the stair tower as well as the fence.
so thanks for the clarification, Kevin, because I forgot that this is kind of like two mirror buildings with the green space in between, right?
Correct. And yeah, when you're talking about the back half of the building, I didn't want it to think like it's in the back of the site because this is a very deep site. It's hard to say. I don't know if Jeff has any 3D perspectives, kind of like a Google Street View, looking up in that general direction.
No, the only thing I have is you can see here's Lancaster Avenue, the site plan. And from the face of the building here back to the stair tower is 88 feet.
And then there's the green space, and after that, there's the green space, and then it
Yes,
does
the green space would be right here.
right.
Jeff, my concern was not necessarily staying in front of the building looking up. You wouldn't see it, but coming, let's say, from downtown Wayne heading
Yes, if
east
you're,
on Lancaster.
yeah, if you're heading east,
Very likely that you could view it.
yes.
And so the aesthetics of this fence, you're saying it's going to be a stucco fence? I'm sorry.
No, it's going to be a composition board shadow box fence painted to match the stucco.
So Jeff, in your opinion, it's going to blend right into the building.
Yes, I think it's hardly going to be noticeable.
Yeah.
Kevin is right, especially in the winter when the leaves are off the trees and you're driving down Lancaster Avenue and you glance back in, you'll get there could be a quick shot of it. It's back pretty far, but not all the way at the back of the site.
Are there any restricted uses to the top deck there? Can a person essentially put a tree and a planter up there and have a tree growing up on top of the roof?
Well, you're asking questions structurally. Could they? We would have to put in the homeowners guidelines a maximum weight because, you know, if they wanted to crane a big potted tree up there that weighs 1,000 pounds, no, they can't do that. Can they put a hot tub up there? No, the roof is not structured for that. So there are going to have to be limitations just because of the structure itself.
Really, I guess those are all questions that aren't necessarily for this board. They speak more to the structural aspect. They speak more to the zoning aspect of it. But in terms of the aesthetic, if you have a fenced off area and then you start seeing stuff pop out the top of it.
Well, I think we could make that a condition.
Yeah.
That the building ownership could put into this unit's deed that anything on the deck, whether it's plant material, furniture, umbrellas to a table umbrella, cannot be higher than the fence.
And then I'd say also with lighting is also a question of what they can do with lighting, because then you start also having something that starts to draw the attention to this one spot of a roof.
Right.
These we're speaking in purely hypothetical land here right now because it's something that we're thinking in the abstract. So,
but they're all good points and
Yeah.
things that I think we can make as conditions and should.
I would throw fire pits in there also. I know they're a hot item right now.
So,
definitely.
well, you know, other buyers have asked about grills on the balcony, and we had to point out that the building code does not allow grills on balconies.
Okay.
Does not. It has to be a
Does
certain.
not. Yeah, it
Wait.
does not. Yeah, the building developer wanted to put gas lines to the balconies for people's gas grills. We told them you can't do that.
I learned that in law school trying to have a grill out on my balcony.
You learned the hard way?
Thankfully, no. I just read the rules.
Good.
Kevin, do you have any other comments or questions for Jeff?
No, I guess it's hard, without being able to see a perspective coming from Lancaster. I just did a quick check on Google Street View. And unfortunately, the building is not shown in any form of vertical element to be able to ascertain whether or not, what the building will, it's only foundation at that point, and all the trees are in leaf. So, my concern just initially is, what's this going to look like driving down in the middle of winter, coming from Wayne or coming into Wayne? Will you be able to see it? And will that now start looking at a place that further projection? The points raised about things projecting above the fence line and limitations as to what can be placed up there were all good, valid things that previously, I guess, weren't considered.
Okay. And I guess the noise element too is another thing that needs to be considered.
Well, I think Mark is putting into the HOA guidelines, that sort of thing anyway for on people's balconies, because every unit does have a balcony. And he's concerned about how that looks. He doesn't want people hanging towels or laundry or things on the balconies. He doesn't want noise. So he's putting a lot of that into the guidelines already.
So if I'm looking at this, I think I have too many questions to be able to say at this point in time whether I approve aesthetics, because I don't necessarily know the full scope of it. I know that when we first approved this building, I remember this application specifically and how it was trying to do some type of industrial feel to the building. I liked how it looked and the different things about the black windows, or I think it was some type of almost like dark brown type windows with the different types of metal paneling and mixed in with the brick. I think if I were to consider to have this fence, I'd want to have something that kind of is consistent with that, because quite frankly, if one person does this, I can see down the road other people wanting this as well, especially everybody wanting to have outside space.
Well,
Yeah, good point. Especially if it starts happening closer to Lancaster Avenue, where its visibility would definitely increase.
Which at that point, you're adding almost another level to the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess is it too much to ask, to provide a rendering of what Kevin is referencing of coming from Wayne heading east to see what that elevation would look like with this fence in place.
Yes, if that's something that you would like, we can have that done.
I guess I don't know if I like it or not. I'm just getting the opinion of the board and Kevin. Is that something that would help us, make a decision?
Jeff, where are you in the process right now?
Well, the process, the timeline is pretty tight. They're drywalling the building, but they've held off drywalling this unit because if this gets approved, then we have to do the structural work. So if this gets tabled, I'll have to find out if Mark will even let the buyer continue to do this because it'll start to hold up the construction.
Well, you are scheduled for which zoning hearing board?
I think I was talking with Nick Caniglia this morning, and he's trying to get everything to you by the 19th of this month. So
the 19th of this month is what I thought. I don't have what was submitted. So it hasn't been submitted for the January meeting, which means you were on February 18th, which means this board meets in February prior to the zoning hearing board. If again, that's a big if. That's a big if this board is willing to grant any kind of approval without having the zoning issues resolved first. If the board wanted to wait until after that, you would be at the March meeting, which is only a week and a half away from the zoning hearing board. So I don't know that waiting until February, that won't impact any kind of construction schedule because they wouldn't be at zoning hearing board yet. Even if this board were to wait until March, there is the builder can proceed under a verbal with zoning hearing board, but there is a 45-day window for the written decision to be issued and another 30-day for appeals. We wouldn't know if there's even going to be any appeals until we get to the hearing and people show up or don't show up. So,
right. Well, you bring up a good point, Kevin. If they're already waiting for the zoning hearing board, what's one more week?
Yeah, I think we're putting the cart before the horse here. At least from my standpoint, I think there are too many questions as to whether this thing can go up or will go up before we get to the point of how it will look once it's up.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and Tim actually has a great point that I didn't think of is that this board could approve. We've dealt with this with signs to some extent, but it's really it's a proportional thing, not necessary if the sign is allowed. But let's say they are somewhat successful at zoning hearing board, but they're only granted a 4-foot fence and not a fence of the magnitude here. Does that change the nature of what this board is looking at and the design of that? And that's something else that to consider. That again, that would be at the risk if this board were to grant something and it changes at zoning hearing board, they'd have to come back anyway.
Right. No, I think that all makes sense.
So our next meeting scheduled for February 10th.
I have a conflict on that date. I know I mentioned that last time.
Okay. So maybe we can possibly reschedule it. I guess Kevin and Lisa can, bang heads on that. Maybe get it rescheduled.
And we'll coordinate behind the scenes with Lisa and figure out if we're coming to the February or March, because as you said, it depends on what the zoning hearing board says as well.
Okay. So at this point, Kevin, do you think the best thing is for us just to table this as a continuation?
Bob, give me a second. I am just looking at the calendar just so that we can talk specifics on dates and not generalities.
Take
So your March meeting is the 10th and the zoning hearing board is the 18th. So that is, it's 2.5 weeks after the zoning hearing board. So we would have two options then if the board wanted to wait. Try to schedule something after the zoning hearing board in February, but before your March meeting. Again, I don't know what applications would be coming in if this is the only one, or just continue this until the March meeting and let that process roll through zoning first. That's at the board level. Staff can work on your schedules and try to come up with a special meeting and advertise it. That is not a problem. We're very willing to do that. It's whether this board is comfortable dealing with the issues that are in front of them with not knowing how this is going to play out in front of the zoning hearing board. That was the concern I raised to to Jeff early on, but then said, look, it's at your risk to come and at the board's leisure as whether they want to entertain this or not.
What do you think, Tim?
I think we wait until we see what zoning hearing does, because they could change a lot of things for how this thing actually goes in or what can go in there. So, I mean, there are a number of issues that go with this, you know, from the skylight, because you're also looking at, while the staircase may not be considered for the height, the aesthetics of integrating the staircase to the fence is something that we would look at. So, I mean, there's a number of things, I think. So I think waiting until we see what zoning hearing does will give us a better guideline.
I think that's reasonable.
Colin, you in agreement with that?
Yeah, especially with the timeline that Kevin's saying, you know, with the appeals and everything, it just seems logical to wait for zoning and then have our March 10th, you know, hearing and go from there.
Okay. Jeff, you all right with that?
I'm fine with that. I think it all makes sense.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we run with that?
Time tonight, guys.
Okay. All right. Should we put that up to a motion? Tim, you want?
I think you need a motion to table this until March.
Okay. Colin or Tim?
Sure. In the matter of DRB 2021-42, application of JTA Associates and Jeffrey Martin, I move to table this matter to the March 10th Design Review Board hearing meeting.
Here, second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. All right. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Thanks, guys. Really
Great to see you,
appreciate it.
Jeff.
Good night.
Okay. And if we just have a second here at the end of the meeting, Tim, you mentioned you're going to be out for the February meeting.
Yeah, I have a conflict where I'm presenting something that same day that got
Okay.
scheduled.
Kevin, is it best just to drop the February meeting altogether, and just have a March meeting, or?
As much as I love to be able to forecast, say, hey, I don't need to worry about a meeting. I don't know what applications are coming in.
Mhm.
Obviously, if we don't have a quorum, but we are under specific deadline requirements to get things in front of this board or they're deemed approved. And yes, we are working with the Board of Commissioners to get, or the commissioners are aware of the need to fill vacancies on this board so that when we have one member out, we can still function. This isn't the only board we're facing that hurdle with. So let's wait until the deadline, if you don't mind, for submittal for the February meeting. And then we will reach out to you, either Lisa or I, and try to game plan how we want to, at the very least, we'll see if we can get written extensions to try to push it. But sometimes projects are time sensitive and they need to get in. So
Okay.
let's wait to see what we have in front of us before we make a decision that we may need to change.
All right. Sounds good, Kevin. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else from the board?
No, sir.
Kevin, you're good. Lisa, good with everything? All right.
Yep. No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, have a good night.
Have a good evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, bye.